call the meeting of the August 2019 State Board of Education meeting to order. And if you will, please stand while we say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have one change to the agenda. The 10 o'clock first item on that agenda, IV 41, is being pulled. Are there any other changes that need to come before us?
I have a matter on the consent agenda that I'd like to move.
Okay, I think you have one. I think Ms. McFetridge has one. Does anybody else have anything on the consent agenda that they'd like to talk about?
I have number 4 I'd like to discuss.
Okay, so let me circle these and we'll take them in order. So number 4, Mr. Peckron, which one?
Number 5.
Number 5. Ms. McFetridge,
Under 12, Jackson County, please.
okay. Anyone else? Okay, I'll start with number 4. Are you wanting clarification, discussion, or you want to pull it for,
I have some discussion I'd like.
okay, if you will?
My question is on the long-term sub-report. I noticed that KIPP had, I think, 11 long-term subs, and I know that if it's a regular district, they get support from the co-ops for their teachers, their new teachers, their ones that are on waivers, and I was wondering if it was the same for charters, if they were going to have any support for, 11 long-term subs seems like a lot.
So yes, the charter schools get any support that, schools would get. So it depends upon whether it comes from ABE, that support, we're always willing to help them, or whether it's from APRC, or I can find out more, and we would certainly offer them
Okay.
more support for that and
That
reach
was-
out to them.
That was my question, if anyone had reached out to them to offer support for those teachers.
Okay.
And also on that same one, since most of them are special ed reading and elementary, the RISE training, the making sure that, I know they've adopted a new curriculum, and
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm not sure if they're a member of a co-op.
I'm not sure about that, but I know that the special ed unit has also worked with them on that and on their special ed teachers particularly.
Can you reach out maybe to someone in the department and someone at KIPP to make sure that we get some
I
help
will
for
do
them?
that personally,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Okay? Number 5, Mr. Peckron?
I'd like that moved to the action agenda. I
Okay.
have some concerns about that one.
Okay, can you give me some direction on exactly what procedure that we might need to take to move a consent item to the action agenda?
Yes, there's actually rules that you would have to adhere by. It's section 16 of our rules. And are you wanting to do an action today or future?
In the
Okay.
future.
In the future, I'll read the rules that stipulate
Mr.
what
James,
you need to
if
do.
you'll say who you are.
Eric James, Chief Investigator, PLSB. Sorry. The State Board may remove a PLSB recommendation from the consent agenda for further review as follows. The State Board will request that the review be placed on the action agenda at its next available regular scheduled monthly meeting. And then the educator or his attorney has a right, of course, to that notice. And then, so we will notify them, and then if they elect to come with their attorney, we would have that process. They can also request additional like bring additional information, transcripts from the evidentiary hearing as well. This sanction was accepted by the educator, and the evidentiary hearing panel actually fell in line with their sanctioning matrix in making this decision, and it is their discretion to mitigate or aggravate those sanctions up. So,
And I have some concerns about the result that was reached in that case, and so I'd like to, I don't know if a motion is the appropriate way to move it onto the action agenda, but I'd move that it be placed on the action agenda for our next meeting.
Okay. Do we need a motion to that effect, Mr. James?
I believe so.
Good morning, Lori Freno, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. I'm sorry. Yeah. I would think at the end of the consent agenda, when you accept the consent agenda, Ms. Zook, I think at that point a motion can be made to also remove from the consent agenda this one item for further consideration. Then you can just do it as one unit.
Okay, Mr. Priest, that work with you?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. And number 12, Ms. McFettridge?
Yes, I have a concern about this service project from, sorry, let me get it up here.
Jackson County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, I'm just very concerned about that project. First of all, the school board president did not sign off on it this year, at least on this application in front of us. But I'm very concerned about the safety of our students always being around drugs, dangerous drugs, which I assume most of these drugs would be dangerous if they're in this program. So I really have a hard time supporting this.
And after the, thank you, I'm Thomas Coy, Division of Learning Services. After the last meeting, we did reach out to the district that had submitted this plan, expressing some concerns, and gave them the opportunity to either call in today or be here or to withdraw their application, and they did not choose to do any of those. So we're not here necessarily to defend their plan, and if you all have concerns, you may certainly vote to not accept this as part of the consent agenda.
Melissa Starkey, Learning Services. I also, after the last time we brought this one before the board, I talked to the person who sent it in, and so the reason it's not signed is because it's just the updated version, so it's still the same thing that the board had approved, so that's why she didn't get it signed again. And we also had conversations on the fact that no matter what they're doing, they're always going to be the police department is there. Students will be trained beforehand so that they'll know exactly what's going on. And she tied it into some of their chemistry, science, and some of their career tech courses. So the thought was there, and the conversations we were able to have made me feel better about it.
But again, inevitably, this is your decision, and if there are concerns, we certainly, I think that the district itself is certainly open to maybe not engage their students in this activity if there are concerns across the board.
Okay.
So.
And I have a comment on that. My granddaughter has participated in one of these as a student volunteer in the education that they get on the dangers of prescription drugs, and so many children today don't realize how dangerous they are, but these kids are getting educated on, that they're dangerous and that they're addictive, and how to handle them, and how it can destroy families. And so, there's good that comes out of it also. And, I can't vouch for this program, but the one that she was in, they were directly and closely supervised during that time.
Commissioner?
Yes, just so the board is aware, this district has a brand-new superintendent, just came on board recently, and this may not have hit his radar to take to the board and have conversations with them or find out really what the concerns are. So we are happy to get follow-up with him and just make sure he's aware of the board's concerns on both sides and whatever process issues they need to make sure they take to have the right board approval.
I think that'd be sufficient then. Thank you very much.
Okay, so when we vote on the consent agenda, it will be minus the Jackson County Sheriff Department for further information, as opposed to moving it to the action agenda. That work for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I did fail to mention in the beginning that Ms. Dean won't be with us today, so just in case people were wondering. Okay, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda minus item 5 and minus Jackson County Sheriff Department on item 12?
I'll move to approve as amended.
Second. Motion to approve as amended, second. Now then, should we vote to move 5 to the action agenda, or do we just state, if the motion is stated correct?
Ms. Zook, at this point, I would just pull it off of the consent agenda for further consideration. I mean, I think it was a fine motion.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, moving to the action agenda. Number 1 is, has been pulled. Let me ask a question before you start. Were Hector and Helena, West Helena, on the phone? They are? Okay. Let me back up just a minute. I had some concerns on the Helena, West Helena report. They were given several years ago all the waivers that the charter in that town also had, but I have not seen any improvement in their scores. I have not seen that the whole objective of the 1240 waivers is how will it benefit a child. And if these are cumbersome regulations, then we, want to remove them. But they've had them for a while, and I can't see that any progress has been made. So if someone from Helena is either on the phone or in the audience, the Helena School District would like to speak to that.
We do have Superintendent English from the Helena School District
Okay.
be present today.
Thank you. And I do apologize, Board, that I had to back up on this. I forgot to turn my page.
Good morning to the board and Secretary.
And could you identify yourself?
My name is Linda English, and I'm from the Great Helena, West Helena School District. I do have staff members, the principals that should be on the phone at this moment.
Okay. There has not been expected growth of individual children or within the school. Those students who are in need of support exceed those students who are ready and are close and are exceeding. And the number of students that you're serving, that you've screened for dyslexia, you have 719 students in your elementary, and you're only serving 24 in your dyslexia program. And that typically between 12 and 20% would be, which would be between 86 and 140. So if you would like to give me some information that would help me better understand what's going on.
What we have done, State Board, Ms. Zook, is that we have restructured what we're doing. We're bringing in extra dyslexia support persons. We also will have a literacy interventionist in place. We have worked with the Great Rivers Co-op this summer to bring those persons in to assist us in building in the master schedule at at J.F. Wall Elementary remediation. We are also the district that requested support from the Arkansas Department of Education. We are now part of the Arkansas Leadership Academy with a performance coach to come in and support our principals. We are looking at restructuring everything that we have done in the past. We have sent our teams to the Professional Learning Institute. I have also went. So we are in a rebuilding year. We realize that our scores are not where they need to be. The theme this year is all hands on deck. All personnel will be held accountable for our students. One of the things that we struggled with was getting our waiver teachers in a pathway program, and that is now key. We have our elementary teachers in a pathway program. We also have the secondary. We struggled there for a little bit, and I was in conversation with Ms. Jacks this morning, who will be coming in to do that plan to make sure that those teachers do become licensed in that area. So this year is my first year as the superintendent of the Helena West Helena School District, and we are getting down, getting busy, and doing the work that needs to be done. The district office staff that are licensed will be doing focus walks in those schools unannounced. The principals, they will be doing those focus walks in those classrooms. So that is the shift from what it was to what it is or will be this school year.
Thank you. Were you one of the superintendents who was certified, or were you the non-certified?
I am the certified.
All right. Well, congratulations on your new job.
Thank you so very much.
And I am glad that I did back up, because I would not want to miss an opportunity to give you an opportunity to tell this board what your plan is, and that you recognize the concern is much or more than we do.
It is, and it's great, and we stand ready and willing, and we're going to turn the Helena West Helena School District around academically. Our students, the community, those families, they deserve to have those scores looking better and being better at what we should do for children.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Secretary?
Yes.
Well, I just want to say, if y'all want to, they have also requested level 4 support from the department, and Dr. Hernandez can talk about that if y'all want to kind of hear what that will mean and how that's going to, how that relationship between the department and the district will work.
As you make your way up, Dr. Hill?
No, I just want anything that we can help you do in the community and rally and support, please let us know. We definitely, from churches and anything that we can do for those children.
Thank you so much, because our children are so deserving.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning. Mike Hernandez, State Superintendent for Office Coordinated Support and Service. And so just want to kind of focus a little bit on the difference in the questions that are being asked here is quite different than what we've seen in the past. We do have some districts that now recognize the department as a support mechanism that says, hey, we understand as a district that there are some things that aren't going right in our district. And instead of waiting for things to become dire, we've had schools, this being the second one, that's reached out and said, we recognize we need some support, and have asked the department to provide level 4 support. And so what that looks like, as Ms. English has mentioned, we're providing services in terms of a partnership with the Leadership Academy to bring them in and help focus the work in development of their leadership teams and giving them some goals to achieve some things academically. But back to the systems approach, when we think about facilities, transportation, human capital, and all those, we're also going to be providing supports related to those areas to make sure that those other systems are fortified in order to help make sure that the academics will be provided. And we'll also be working closely with the co-op to provide those services, along with principal support to make sure that the evaluation systems are going well, that the literacy plans are really quality, that the dyslexia type stuff, special ed services, and so we'll be providing all those wraparound supports to the district as well. And so we're in that planning stage right now and getting ready for next year, because that was kind of a recent request for that level 4 support. So we're looking forward to the work.
And I think the community engagement, and since Ms. Dean is not here, I'll channel her, or Dr. Hill, you want to channel her and talk about the stakeholder engagement?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was just saying, and every community is different, and so, as you proceed through with Ms. Dean and myself and any board member there from the churches and outreach, anything that we can do to support those efforts, to get involvement, for, through extracurricular activities, all those type of things, we want to help because we realize, you have a daunting challenge in front of you, and we need everybody, as you said, we say all hands on deck, but that includes the community as well.
Yes, absolutely. And
You know,
Dr. Hill, please, let's reach out to each other
Yes.
because we certainly want to engage our community. We are only as strong as our community.
Right.
So we want that support, and we do.
And what we find is that oftentimes, as the teachers are doing the very best they're doing from 8 to 4, that it's that from 4 to 9, that gap right there, that we need that type of support so we can keep our kids engaged and, and after school. So whatever we need to do, I'll give you my number and.
Thank you for that.
And pastors that we can pull
We
on board
welcome
or
that.
whatever, okay?
We appreciate that.
And I'll let Ms. Dean know.
Because, right now, both public school choices that the students in Helena, West Helena have are not, at least on paper.
Yes.
They
Yes,
are
ma'am.
not meeting the needs of these students. So
That's correct.
all of you working together and the community as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank each of you.
Okay, now back on the agenda. Mr. Dugan.
Taylor Dugan, attorney for the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. And I'm actually a little excited about this case to talk to you folks about it because it involves RAPBAC. And so, which I know the board has had questions about in the past and actually seeing it come to work. Ms. Farina let me know that she did sound the halls for Mr. Byrne and that he's not present. He's currently in the federal penitentiary in Texarkana. So if I may, Ms. Zook, go ahead and start with my presentation. So what you have in front of you guys, ladies and gentlemen, is a case dealing with a disqualifying offense. And so what you should have in front of you is a packet, which is labeled Joseph Byrne, and this is a licensure action. It is from 2018 because it was RAPBAC. And so the first thing I have as DZ Exhibit 1 is his license, and although it did expire in 2017, again, this was RAPBAC. So we sent a letter.
I don't seem to have that, I'm sorry.
Mr. Dugan, I don't have a copy of the.
You don't have a copy?
Byrne packet.
Byrne packet.
Does she have this one?
Was this your copy?
That may have been the duplicate.
Is what else you just don't have on this?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So the first is just a copy of the educator's license. That's labeled as DZ Exhibit 1. And so how the RAPBAC works is when folks go get their fingerprints now, they enroll in this system to where the Arkansas State Police will notify us if they've been arrested, classified or certified employees. So we received notification last year that this educator was arrested. And so we sent them notice to send us documentation as far as the proceedings with the case. And we did not receive that back. So that's when I started tracking the case and following it to Court Connect. And so it got null-crossed in state court, and the federal authorities picked it up. And so he was convicted of possession of child pornography on June 17th, or May 17th of 2019. And so then we sent notice to him that now that there's this conviction, you do have the right to request a waiver. He was currently housed in the penitentiary in Texarkana. He did not respond to our request. And so since he has been convicted of a disqualifying offense and is not asking for a waiver, the statute states that the state board shall revoke his license.
And it's my understanding that even under the new law, if something has been permanently revoked, this would not be one that could be permanently undone.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. Since this is a sexual offense, we would classify that as that this is one that in 10 years he would not be able to reapply for reinstatement of his license. So this would be a permanent revocation.
Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. McFettridge,
Seconded.
seconded by, was that Dr. Hill or Mr., okay, Mr. Peckman, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. License revoked. Okay, on to the next one.
And the next one, Ms. Zook, is going to be Ms. Jerry Jean Danielson. She has asked for a waiver. She is waiting outside, and so Ms. Link is going to go and get her. Taylor Dugan, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education Attorney. Ms. Zook, if I may, could I briefly go over the rules
Please.
for these proceedings? So what we have in front of us today is we have the waiver request of Ms. Jerry Jean Danielson, who's a licensed educator in Arkansas. Each party will have the opportunity to present an opening statement of no longer than 5 minutes, beginning with the representative of the division of, from the division. The chairperson of the State Board may, only for good cause shown, and upon the request of either party, allow either party additional time to present their opening statements. And then after that, each party will have 15 minutes, starting with the representative from the division to present their case. And then Ms. Danielson will have 15 minutes. And then after that, each party will have 5 minutes to present their closing. And any witnesses that Ms. Daniels would have would need to be sworn in at this time.
Any questions before we begin? Okay.
And
Do you, anyone who will be giving testimony, please stand and raise your right hand. And I'll need a verbal response. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
And like cases I presented to the board in the past, for an opening statement, just what I'm here today to prove is that the proposed action exists by preponderance of the evidence. So I'm just going to be going through the documents during my actual presentation of the case. So as far as an opening, I'm going to waive that and use that 15 minutes to present the case.
Okay. Is Ms. Danielson represented by an attorney or by herself?
No, ma'am, she is represented by herself.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Danielson?
Thank you for seeing me today.
If you'll pull the microphone down and get as close as you feel comfortable and identify yourself.
Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm just going to start by explaining what happened. In 2017, I took my 7 children to Silver Dollar City in Missouri. My 7 children were extremely excited to be going to Silver Dollar City, and every one of them decided that they were going to try to scatter on me. And I kept saying, no, you guys got to stay together, you got to stay together. Unbeknownst to me, Silver Dollar City now has a security check, which is about 15 feet before you actually give the tickets, okay? We went through the security check. Kids got through the security check like that because they didn't have anything in their backpacks. Me and my mother took us a little bit longer to get through the security because they were going through our purses, kind of like you would expect at an airport. I had asked the children to wait over here for us, and they were signaled on by the Silver Dollar City people who were taking the tickets. Well, next thing I know, my daughter, the oldest one, Deanna Danielson, starts yelling, Mom, I need the tickets, I need the tickets. So, of course, I start yelling at her back, no, I need you to wait over there because I'm not giving you the tickets. So, invariably, we're causing this big scene because we're yelling back and forth 15 feet. Finally, the children get out of line and they go over there to wait. When I get over there, I'm again explaining to the children, you have to stick together. This is a big park. It would be very easy for us to lose you, and, you know, I don't know if I would be able to find you. Well, as I'm explaining this, one of the children said, well, Deanna's not even paying attention. Well, Deanna has autism, okay? And I don't know how much y'all know about autism, but a lot of times they get very focused on one thing. And her one thing was getting in the park, okay? So she wasn't paying any attention to me. And a lot of times when she doesn't pay any of attention to us, we have to get her to look at us. And sometimes to get her to look at us, we have to put our hand on the side of her face, like this, so that she's looking at us and we know that she's paying attention. I had placed my hand on the side of her face like this to get her attention and to explain to her, you have to stay with us, because especially you, if you get lost, you know, you might panic and then you might not be able to really find us at all or explain what's going on. Well, the park person who was trying to take the kids' tickets prior to me having them go over here was witnessing me put my hand on my daughter's head about 10 feet away. According to her, I pulled my daughter's hair. I did not pull my daughter's hair. My daughter is extremely tender-headed, and she has an excellent set of lungs. Had I pulled my daughter's hair, she would have screamed bloody murder. So they called the police on us, claiming that I had pulled my daughter's hair. They questioned all 7 of my children, myself, and my mother, all of us telling them, we don't know what you're talking about, that didn't happen, okay? I was not arrested. I was not read my rights. They took down our names, they took down our addresses. I was not even aware I was being prosecuted until about a month and a half later when I got a letter in the mail. At that time, I got an attorney, and my attorney had advised me to enter in an Alford plea, because even though they had said they had had cameras, and I said, well, good, pull them up, because it'll show I didn't do anything, okay? That evidence just disappeared. They didn't have that evidence. So my attorney advised me, she said, well, look, she said, if you plead innocent, they had a thing in Missouri that if anybody even thinks you were thinking about it, whether you did it or not, you're guilty.
Let me pause a minute. Your time, the bell is gonna go
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry.
No, wait. And, but that doesn't mean your time is up. That means you'll get 15 minutes to finish. But I have to let Mr. Dugan go, so, finish up.
Okay.
And then I'll call you back up to complete your story.
Okay. So anyway, she said, my advice to you is to enter in an Alford plea. They'll do a sis, which is a suspended sentence. And then after a year, as long as you're not in trouble and nothing else happens, it shouldn't be on your record anymore. So that's what I was expecting to happen. But when I reapplied for my licensure, it was on my record.
Okay. And you'll stop there, and we'll let Mr. Dugan speak, and then you'll have 15 more minutes.
Thank you, Taylor Dugan, Division of Elementary Secondary Education. Ms. Danielson was very kind to let me provide the documents to the board prior to this hearing. However, I did print off some copies and leave them up there for the board. If there's anyone that does not have a packet that states Jerry Jean Elizabeth Danielson up at the top, and that's the exhibit list from the division. And then also, Ms. Danielson has a list of exhibits that I also labeled Educators Exhibits 1 of 12. And so if anyone needs copies of those, I also have some extra copies.
Does everyone have the information he's addressing?
Yes, sir.
We need a copy of this.
You need another copy of that one?
Let me give her Ms. Dean's copy.
And so for, may I proceed?
Please.
Ms. Lick, thank you. So as the division's first exhibit is the license, Ms. Danielson's license, and let me also give Ms. Danielson a copy of this while we're going through this. And then the second exhibit that we have is just like to put on the record that we gave her notice of what we found on the background check, that domestic assault 4th degree from Missouri. what then I looked at was I looked at the elements of that offense, and it matched up with assault first degree here in Arkansas, which is a Class A misdemeanor, and a Class A misdemeanor in Missouri. So 617-410 allows that if it's a charge that is similar in another state or federal charge, then it would fit into that. So even though it's domestic assault fourth degree, it matched up with assault first degree. The elements of it did. And so we sent her notice, and she did respond back. But our Exhibit 3 is just that order from Stone County. The case number matches up with the case number from the background check showing that it was an assault, and that there was a guilty and offered plea, and that the defendant was found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And then it does also show, and I know Ms. Danielson will talk more, that it was a suspended imposition of sentence. And I did research Missouri law to where that could act as a dismissal. So I was wanting to get an order, because I know here in Arkansas, you get an order, or they'll put on the docket sheet that they, when they review it, make sure all conditions were met, all probation conditions were met, and that it was dismissed. Exhibit 4 is the statement from Ms. Danielson here that just was requesting the waiver. Also gave some detail of the offense that Ms. Danielson had spoke to earlier. And then finally, the notice to be here today. That's our exhibit number 5. And since Ms. Danielson's here, that helped show that she got that notice. And then finally, communicated with the attorney there in Missouri, trying to figure out some more information about the offense, and that they're working on getting that expunged. But since our law does state that even an expunged conviction, if it was a violent offense, can still be taken into consideration, and it's still a disqualifying offense. And so,
Let me ask you a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
The date on the Exhibit 3, is that say 11/18 or 11/17? The reason I'm asking
Yes,
is
ma'am.
because it says the probation would only be for 1 year.
I read that as 2017, and that would match up with what was on the sentencing report
Okay, thank you.
or on the background check. Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Dugan, I assume there are no questions that Ms. Danielson did properly complete all the terms of the probation?
I don't know, like here in Arkansas, like I said, I'm not an expert in Missouri law, that we, like a satisfaction of judgment type thing. In district court, that's the ones that I've dealt with, they all will put on the docket sheet, there's been no similar offenses, nothing like that, so then they're released from probation. Or in the suspended imposition of sentence, now it's just like what we have here in here in Arkansas, Act 346, the First Time Offenders Act, but the judge actually enters an order stating that it is dismissed now.
But there were no notations on the docket that she did violate the terms?
Correct.
Of probation. Thank you.
And so in here, the law just states that we are supposed to show by preponderance of the evidence that the person pled guilty of a disqualifying offense.
Does the department have a recommendation?
In the past, the department has granted waivers for this exact similar offense that we've had. And I will say Ms. Danielson has been incredibly easy to work with, and so I do not have any objection if the board were to grant Ms. Danielson a waiver.
All right, Ms. Anderson, you may complete your statement.
Okay, what, I kind of already explained what happened, but I did notice, in the packet that I didn't have my reference letters. So I'm assuming y'all, do you have those reference letters?
Yes.
Okay, and also, do you also have the, criminal background history that states that I did complete everything?
Yes.
I see some yeses and some nos. Okay, well, if you just pass this
I saw that.
down here, to show that I completed
Oh, that
everything
one,
I was
yes,
supposed
yeah.
to.
Rather than make copies, we'll just pass it from each person.
And also, this incident was also investigated by Arkansas for the child maltreatment. And as I said, is it in there? I didn't see it in there. Okay. And here's my thing. If I had hurt my daughter, I don't understand why they wouldn't have taken the children out of my custody. I don't understand why they wouldn't have arrested me on the spot. I don't see how Arkansas could have investigated it and spoke to all my children and said, you know, we don't see anything here. I got some really bad advice from an attorney, and, you know, I was paying the attorney to be on my side, so, you know, I followed their advice. That's really all I have, unless you have any particular questions for me.
Okay. Mr. Beckman, we'll start with you. Do you have a question for Ms. Danielson?
No, all I'll say is I have 2 autistic children, and I understand exactly what you're going through, and I appreciate your situation.
Yeah.
Ms. Newton? Dr. Hill? Ms. Chambers?
No, you have not been teaching since 2017?
Oh, no, I have been. I was teaching at Forest City until February of 2019, when I had resigned. I had some personal issues going on. I currently have another job with Wynn School District, because the personal issues that were going on was my grandmother was very ill, and my mother needed some extra help at home, because we put her on hospice care, and she passed away in February of last year, so that personal issue is no longer a thing. But no, I have been teaching this whole time, and I have been teaching in a self-contained environment with half my class being nonverbal. In my local area, I'm well known for working with children who have major developmental and behavioral problems, and you know, I've taken a kid who didn't understand the concept of what you're supposed to do in a cafeteria at all, to now he eats with a spoon. And he sits in his chair instead of climbing on it. So, you know, I'm pretty well known for doing that. I enjoy teaching. I especially enjoy teaching in the self-contained, because I find that the gains you make there are ginormous. I mean, if you are somebody who has a child with autism or a major significant delay, it's one of those things you gotta experience to fully understand. Out of my 7 children, I have 5 with ADHD. I have 2 who suffer from, I have Deanna who suffers from OCD, autism, and ODD, fun combinations. I have another one who suffers from ADHD and ODD, and 2 with intellectual disability. So, you know, I'm working at work and I'm working at home, you know. And I really hope that you'll grant me the waiver, because to my way of thinking, this was a big misunderstanding that just went way too far.
Ms. McFedridge?
I've noticed you've got some very good letters supporting you, and that's really, really helpful for me, and I appreciate you bringing all of these.
And 2 of those letters are from the counselors that have seen my children for the last 2 years, you know, and they are tuned in to if a child is being abused, you know. They come to our house, they talk to the kids, and 4 of the children, well, only 1 of them I gave birth to, okay? The other 6 I've kind of sort of inherited. And 4 of them I inherited in 2017, you know. So, you know, again, it was a big misunderstanding.
Mr. Williamson?
I've just got a motion.
Okay.
We're done with questions.
Dr. Moore? Ms. McAdoo?
You said you taught at Forest City. Where did you say you were going to teach?
At Wynn School District.
When?
Pending
Okay.
this hearing, of course.
Gotcha. I didn't quite hear you say that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Williamson?
Yeah, just hearing everything, reading the packet, I move that we grant the waiver.
I have a motion to grant the waiver from Mr. Williamson, a second from Dr. Hill. Do I need to take a roll call vote?
I don't think so.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You got your waiver?
Thank you.
And thank you for the work you do with the children.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Have a great school year.
Yes, you won.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We're planning on it.
The teacher that we sent to me last week. Okay, item 4. Joan, are you going to introduce this? Okay, thank you.
Good morning, I'm John Ward, Superintendent of Magnolia Public Schools. Well, I guess to start off, we have 36 new employees this year, a large turnover for our district. First part of July, when it became evident that we were going to have a very difficult time fulfilling the remaining positions, especially at the elementary level, first part of July, I reached out to SAU and asked them if there was any possibility of creating an opportunity for us to use existing student teachers who were assigned to our district to fill these classrooms. The first part of July, we started working on this partnership with SAU and developed some guidelines for this partnership.
Not as tall as him. Neely Dobbins from SAU. I'm the chair of the Department of Teacher Ed. And so when we started working together, we actually got with several of our districts around who were having the same problems of filling positions. And so we created guidelines for some of our student teachers that we felt were very prepared, that had high GPAs and had no dispositional concerns, and met all the requirements that we felt were necessary to be put in a classroom. And then we worked really closely with Magnolia with our new Mule Rider Leap program to ensure that they had people that they felt confident in their classrooms to fulfill these 2 positions that we're going to do this fall with long-term subs, if you guys allow. And got everything in place. You guys have seen our Mule Rider Leap agreement, as well as the affiliation agreement between Magnolia and Camden. And that's kind of where we are.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Dr. Moore?
Yes, I have a couple as I read through the packet. Thank y'all for being here today. I think my
Dr.
main
Moore, would you
concern-
pull the microphone
Yes,
a little closer? Thank you.
One concern would be, in this instance, a college student coming in to teach, maybe starting in 2nd semester in a new classroom, and those set of students therefore having 2 teachers for that year. How do y'all plan to mitigate that, and what will that look like?
So at semester, when these students graduate, they will be offered a contract with Magnolia Public Schools to continue. I mean, they will be a regular teacher. These kids will not transition to another teacher at semester. We will hire them as a certified teacher at semester.
Okay, that makes sense. I see that there are great plans for mentors in this case, and we all know that one of the main challenges of a first-year teacher is classroom management. What additional support will that mentor or others be providing to those teachers?
So each teacher will have their mentor that they would typically have as a student teacher. Those mentor have common planning periods with that teacher. Both of these teachers also have math and literacy facilitators, coaches on that campus that will be at their disposal and in their classrooms weekly.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. How much time spent in a classroom will have? Do you know how much will they have acquired prior to this?
Oh, okay. Yes, they do. Let me think about it. So they will have had Intro to Ed, which has like 15 hours of experience, and then they have 2 previous experiences before then, both leading to about 100 hours, maybe like between 80 and 100 hours in a classroom that they've spent over, I guess, 3 semesters prior to this one.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. McAdoo?
I don't have any right now.
Okay, Mr. Williamson? Ms. McFadridge? Ms. Newton?
The mentor teacher, these two teachers are gonna be at the elementary level, is that what you said?
One in second grade, one in fourth grade. The fourth grade is a math teacher.
Okay, so what are you doing to give them some common time to be able for the mentor to maybe to go into her classroom and then them have time to sit down together? Or have you done anything with that?
On the common planning time, at the second grade, for example, there are 10 second grade teachers. There are 5 in each group that have common planning time. Then they can meet after school as an entire group. Now, as far as the mentor going into the classroom, the coaches, the facilitators can cover the mentor teacher's classroom so that mentor teacher can go inside that classroom. There will also be representatives from SAU that will be in that student teacher's classroom, as well as our coaches and facilitators that are going to spend an enormous amount of time in those classrooms.
Okay.
With that.
And then that teacher would have opportunity to maybe to go into other classrooms also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Are you looking at doing this program second semester also, or just this first semester?
Right now, I mean, this covers all of our classes, so if we were to, the intent is just this semester, but, you know, if we have teachers leave, if we have teachers that were to leave at semester and we were unable to fill that position with a certified teacher, we would certainly use this as an option.
Okay. And one other question, we've had some colleges and districts that have cooperated in this way before. Have y'all reached out to any of those to look at maybe some ideas of what succeeded and what maybe were some problem areas?
So when we started this planning period, we reached out to Joan, who provided us with the other universities' plans and what they had been doing. And so then we worked to figure out what would be the best plan for us within the way our programs work, and used ideas from all of their programs to decide what was best with SAU and our local districts.
I would encourage you to reach out maybe to the universities and
Okay.
maybe get some ideas on how this worked really well, but here were some areas that
problems.
maybe the teachers needed a little extra support and that sort of thing. So I would encourage you to reach out to them because we can
Definitely.
all learn from one another.
Yes, definitely.
Mr. Peckron?
Nothing.
Ms. Chambers?
So kind of building on what Ms. Newton was just asking about, so this would be an ongoing program, is that right? So it's not just for a finite period of time? That's one question.
Our hope is that it's ongoing as need. I mean, obviously, we want certified teachers in the classrooms, and so that's the first goal. And we have an outline of a timeline, and so the expectation would be is when our students submit student teacher packets, they would basically sign off that they would want to apply for this program. And so then we would have kind of a pool of those students and be able to provide it to the superintendents. If they can't find a certified teacher in the classroom, that's when they would go to these students to, and they would do an interview to ensure that that's who they wanted. And then the students would be.
Right, but it would be an ongoing.
It would ongoing,
Ongoing
yes.
program.
Yes.
And it sounds like a fantastic program. I would encourage you to think about how you can share, should it be approved, how you can tell your story and share that narrative, as I think there'll continue to be needs and opportunities for a program like this. My last question is for your more tenured or experienced teachers, other than those that are mentoring, in general, how do they feel about this?
I think, in my eyes, and from the people that we've talked to when we were doing this, because we brought in 4 school districts who are all really on board. We just didn't have people in those. They're excited to know that we're getting people who are at least as prepared as we could get them, instead of putting people in classrooms that are not, because they feel like with students they have more ideas, and our students are willing to learn and they're excited, and so it provides another opportunity kind of in that area of people for them to collaborate with, and our students come in knowing that they need to learn, that they don't know everything. Do you have?
I've not specifically spoken to our tenured teachers and asked that specific question. I know that we have a very, very supportive staff that are very team-oriented, and they want quality teachers in those classrooms.
I just think if you could be really intentional about how you do draw them in, that could help, I think, create even more of a collective expertise and an ownership of success for everybody that could be useful to, certainly to the students, but to all involved.
Ms. Zook, I had one more question.
Okay, Ms. Newton?
I noticed you had 3 other districts besides Magnolia. Did you just not have students for those, or they didn't have a need?
So we didn't have students that we have placed in there right now. Actually, one of the districts came to us yesterday, and they have a need. But we were kind of like, it's a little late at this point. So we have them on there because those are the initial districts that we do plan on, and they were a part of the planning phase. But since we didn't have students that were going to be working in those schools this fall, we did not bring them. We do anticipate in the future, as those placements happen, coming with those districts in front of you guys with the affiliation agreement specific to those districts.
And are you open to adding more districts to your?
Yes, definitely. We were trying to kind of rein it in and just start. We don't want to get real broad without knowing and being able to work through the kinks in the beginning, but we did want our districts that reach out to us most often for need to be a part of that initial conversation, so that we all agreed that this would be what was helpful and worked. And those 4 districts are usually the ones that have the most need that we work with.
Mr. Key?
So in your agreement, the elementary requirements include successfully completed all previous coursework with a B or higher. Middle school and secondary is a C or higher. Could you explain that?
I can explain, definitely. So we had a lot of conversation about this, and our middle school and secondary people, those upper level math courses and those upper level science courses are beyond rigorous. And sometimes our students struggle in those courses, but pass our licensure exams with no problems. So we did not want to exclude any student who might have made a C in a content course, but still had a 3.0 GPA, because they're working really hard and they're doing everything. But some of those are really amazing students. And so our middle school person, she came to bat for those students and said, no, I have really qualified people, but might have made a C in one of those upper level calculus courses, and we don't want to exclude them. So that's why we came to that final decision. There was a lot of discussion around it.
And that was my next question, was did this come from faculty? Did it come from, or was there a lot of input into that decision? So you answered that. Thank you.
There was.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, and as far as salary is concerned, how does the district deal with that in this case?
So through the planning process, we found that each district was a little bit different. For Magnolia, if we, last year, I believe, was our first year to have a long-term sub waiver. We developed a separate salary schedule for a long-term sub, and it was based on the state minimum. We are above the state minimum. The long-term sub salary is based on the state minimum.
Okay. So then at that point, when they graduate the program,
They will move up to our district salary schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. One probably for Dr. Bailey. Will this be an issue with regard to them having a highly qualified teacher in every classroom? Sorry.
No, ma'am, I don't believe so. We don't have HQT any longer, and so I believe it would meet requirements, yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that informed me about something I didn't know. And identify yourselves.
Sorry. Suzanne Bailey, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my other question is, will these teachers be given the RISE training like your other teachers, because they will be elementary, therefore they will be teaching reading?
So at SAU, our students are on a pathway to proficiency that has been approved by ADE. And so they have completed 9 hours of coursework So, and they will have passed the Foundations of Reading exam prior to graduation. So they have done that at SAU, but then the expectation in our document is that they would be attending any training that a normal classroom teacher would attend, so.
And where are you in your district with RISE training?
So today they are in day 2 of the 3 through 6 training. K2 has already had their training. K3 has already had their training. Last week was group 1. These 2 students, since they have not been approved yet, were not part of either one of these 2 groups training. We will get them trained, but they have. I think what they're going through now is exactly what they have received at SAU.
Okay, so you can work with your co-op and maybe with another district.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Key?
Mr. Ward, about a year ago, I came down and kicked off your school year, and you told me something about the RISE training. Do you remember what you told me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you repeat that for the board?
So, last summer I went through the letters training, which and I sat through the entire training. It was eye-opening to me. It was a lot of aha moments, and it was absolutely the absolute best training that I have ever gone through in any of my coursework. And I think I even said that every superintendent should probably go through that same training if they've not done so already.
You did
I
say
agree
that.
with that. I don't think that'll be in the part of a motion, but nonetheless. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion, and on behalf of all those that got a C in calculus, I would like to move that we approve this proposal from Southern Arkansas University to use student teachers.
Motion by Ms. Chambers, second by?
Second.
Mr. Williamson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we have embedded course proposals, and Ms. Smith and Mr. Coy.
Thomas Coy, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, Learning Services. Come before you around this time each year. For those of you who've been around a little bit, Act 421 of 2013 allows curriculum frameworks from 2 separate courses to be taught in a single course. For those who are new to the board, these come through our office and go through the course approval process, where our content specialists check for the content to make certain that the standards in both courses are being met. We also look to see if the teachers are appropriately licensed in both content areas, or if the district has a plan to team teach, or if they have a waiver of some sort in place. So we bring to you some courses today for your consideration and approval. You'll be happy to know, I know Dr. Barth was concerned last year, as some of you were concerned about the personal finance piece with the change in legislation. The personal finance, being embedded in things like American history, world history, those are no longer coming to us, because we were able to have a legislation change that allowed that to count in 9th grade for economics. So hopefully these courses will be acceptable to you. If you have questions, I'm happy to entertain those at this time.
Have questions? Ms. McAdoo?
I do have a question. As an oral communication teacher, do you have a plan to make sure that everything is covered as you embed 2 different courses, specifically English and oral comm?
Yes, so part of the course approval process, they have to, each district has to submit a complete course outline, so that the very first thing we do is we check to make certain that all of the standards are present in the course outline. But you bring up a great point. We don't just want students doing presentations and thinking that they're receiving the instruction. So one of the things that we really tried to accomplish with the English and embedded oral comm, or oral comm in general, is that the instruction around the oral communication is actually taking place. There is a whole body of knowledge there that needs to be taught, not just having students stand up and make presentations. So they provide sample assessments, they provide scoring rubrics, they talk about different content that they're teaching and how they're using that to embed in the English classes, or actually any course. So.
Dr. Moore?
Yes, I think it's exciting to see the CTE course, Animal Science and Biology, how do we get more of that? And is that something y'all are gonna be looking at and seeing as an example for other school districts as we move forward?
Yes, we are working on that. We have several, we've worked with Career Education, our colleagues there, to approve several of their courses in their pathways for general math or science credits, but we're seeing more of those courses being embedded. And this one, for example, is awarding the biology graduation requirement and a career focus credit toward a career completer pathway. So we are working more collaboratively with our colleagues at Career Ed to do just that.
Great, thank you.
Ms. McFettridge?
Yes. So if I understand it right, only the districts listed here will be allowed to do the embedded courses like this?
These are the districts that submitted for this year. We have courses that have been submitted in previous years that have already been approved. I can provide you that entire spreadsheet if you'd like to see that. But we don't ask schools to resubmit until we have a change in the academic standards. So things that have been approved before are still being taught as embedded courses, provided they have teachers. But these are the only districts that submitted embedded course requests for this coming school year.
Ms. Newton?
Just a comment, I really like the combination that P. Ridge did with the civics and Orcom. I really think that that's a really good fit as far as putting the coursework together and could really make those fit together and really make a good rigorous course out of that. So I was really impressed with that idea.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. What is the need or the reason or the intent behind embedding the two courses? Is it about not having enough teachers to teach the two subjects, or can you explain that, please?
Well, I think the original intention was to allow content that fit together nicely to be taught. More of a cross-curricular idea in high school, because you taught high school, I did as well. Mm-hmm. We seem to be very siloed and very disciplined. So I think the intent on the front end was that we'd have more cross-curricular offerings. The other piece here, I believe, is that we're trying to offer more opportunities for students in terms of electives. So that's why we're seeing a lot of the English and oral comm together. I know at one point, we added the English teachers to the oral comm licensure because there was a concern that there might not be enough teachers. I think there's a lot of different things that come into play, but I think the original intention was to create more opportunities for students to engage in other electives and to put courses together that had a nice fit. So, I don't know if that answered your question, but
it does.
Ms. Hallmark would be proud because she's proud that you're advocating for your oral comm folks. So.
Right, because I don't have a vote, but yes, I think that oral comm is a standalone class.
Any other discussion? Do you have a motion?
Move to approve.
Ms. Newton moved to approve. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Peckron. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, Ms. McLaughlin and the charters that have just finished their first year, or part of their first year.
Good morning, Kelly McLaughlin, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. Today we have a report for you that meets the requirement of Arkansas Code Annotated 623-406 that requires an end-of-year review of the initial year of operation for the new open enrollment public charter schools. And this report consists of their overall financial condition and condition of their student enrollment.
Do you want us to, are all of the charters represented here in the audience?
No, they are not.
Okay, are any of them on the phone?
No, they are not.
Okay, so if we have questions, we direct them to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let them look just a minute. Dr. Moore, are you ready with a question?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. McAdoo, do you have a question first? Okay. Dr. Moore?
Yes, I did. So going through these, obviously I'm no expert, but I did see two with pretty small ending balances. Are there any financial concerns from the department and anything
I do have Heather Barrick here from the Finance Department.
Mr. Rogers, Ms. Barrett, either one?
And Mr. Rogers, yes, I'm sorry.
I think to her point, one of the things is that they are significantly below their cap. So I guess our question usually is, if you don't get as many students as you anticipate, that affects your income, and therefore, are they gonna be able to sustain?
Greg Rogers, Department of Education. So, any immediate need? No, there's not right now, but we do continue to monitor them just like we do all of them to make sure that they are operating physically sound.
Okay. Is there, like, if they start the school year down majorly in enrollment, will that sort of, do y'all monitor that?
Yes.
At the end of the quarter or as are ongoing?
Both. We continue, that's what we have in fiscal services board. We have someone dedicated just to charters for fiscal.
So they're on e-finance, so you can keep up with it
Yes.
constantly? Okay. Mr. Williamson?
No.
Ms. McFetridge? Ms. Chambers? Dr. Hill? Ms. Newton? Mr. Peckron? Do I have a motion?
Motion would be to accept the report.
Right. The proper motion would be to accept the report.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Peckron, second by Ms. Chambers. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have our ABC third round state board, and Ms. Underwood is here.
Yes.
Welcome to the division, the department, or whatever we're calling ourselves now.
Well, good morning. I'm Susan Underwood. I am with the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education with the Arkansas Better Chance Program. We are asking approval for Calico Rock School District to continue high-quality preschool services for children and families formerly served by the White River Preschool. Calico Rock would be awarded 20 slots in the amount of $99,320, which would include retro pay of $9,932 for payment one. We're also asking for an additional 5 slots to be awarded to Eureka Springs School District. These additional slots would include the retro pay an amount of $2,483 for payment one, which brings the total amount for Eureka School District to 35 slots at $173,810. Therefore, a request is to approve the 20 slots to Calico Rock and an additional 5 slots to the Eureka Springs, that both with the retro pay for payment one as proposed.
Okay. Have questions on either side? Okay, the question I had, this was under Calico Rock School District, it says center-based, but they are gonna have it on their campus?
Yes, and actually, White River Preschool, it was located on the Calico Rock campus when they were in operation.
Okay, it just threw me when it said center-based.
Oh, yes.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the Better Chance proposal.
Moved by Ms. McFetridge, second by? Ms. Chambers, all in favor?
Okay, and then
Opposed? Motion passes.
the second item is a request to approve the use of ABC funding to serve children that are in foster care that are placed in various communities around the state. Children, and then also children and families who are homeless according to the federal McKinney-Vento Act guidance. These funds would support services for children in foster care and homeless that the program would exceed the initial approved funding amounts. Arkansas Better Chance continues to work closely with the Division of Children and Family Services as well as the LAA Homeless Liaisons to ensure children in foster care and homeless situations have immediate access to the high-quality services of the ABC programs.
Ms. Chambers?
I would guess the need here could be great. I was just curious how the funds would be allocated. How does it work exactly?
Well, last year, we actually, when all things were said and done, we only had about less than 15 children that we paid extra according to that. Our programs work very diligently to make sure that these children are part of the program, and once there is a opening in the slots, they automatically move into an ABC slot.
Okay.
So most of the time, there's not any additional funds, but sometimes we do have those additional funding needs.
Okay. But if you had need that exceeded funds available, is it first come, first serve? How do you go about that?
We try to work with our collaborative partners in those communities. If they are exceeding the licensing, we always look at how are those classrooms licensed. If we can put those children in there temporarily until there is a slot open, we do that. If it exceeds too much, then we reach out to our community partners to make sure that they are served.
Any other questions?
Is this just for children who are 3 and 4, or does it cover birth to 4?
It covers birth through 5.
Okay, and then I think we had a conversation previously, just out of curiosity. So if a child is adopted out of the foster care system, could they fall under that? At all?
Yes, we do. We work with those families closely as well, because we know that a lot of times those children are experiencing trauma, and those families need support as well.
Thank you.
About how many per year? Do you have a guesstimate or an average number?
Well, we have been working very closely with the foster system at DHS. We probably around 300 foster children in our systems. That is those that are coming to us immediately. We also have other children that have been in foster care or have been adopted, but I can get you all of those statistics as well.
Yeah, I know as a CASA worker, I did discover a lot of times the courts don't always pay attention to school years when they move children around, and they could move them 5 or 6 towns away. And so I'm glad that we have a way of addressing their immediate needs if we can't keep the courts from moving them during the middle of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to accept the report?
I move to approve the use of ABC funding to serve children in foster care and children and families who are homeless.
Okay. Motion by Ms. Chambers, second by
Second.
Ms. McFettridge. Those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay. We are finished with the morning agenda, and the parents, Ms. Hyatt, may I ask you a question? Go ahead and identify yourself.
Mary Claire Hyatt, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education.
Okay, it was mentioned to me that the parents aren't here, but typically, this is just a perfunctory, we approve without having to have the parents here. Do we need to wait for them, or
So I can
call them
present,
with the good news?
I can present them to you, and then if you have questions of the parent, we can move it back to the afternoon agenda. But if you want to go ahead and present, and then if you don't have questions, I can just get in touch with them afterwards.
What's the pleasure of the board? Okay.
Can you tell me which one is first?
Yes, the Vick family.
Okay, so the Vick family is wishing to change the enrollment from St. Joseph in Conway to Immaculate Conception in North Little Rock. The board has to approve the change for the Succeed Scholarship change, and the change is being asked for because of a change in location due to an employment change.
Okay. Do you have questions? A motion?
Move to accept the Vick request for transfer.
Okay, Ms. McFettridge moved to accept the Vick request for transfer. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Newton. All in favor? Opposed? All right, the next one is the Williams family.
This is also due to transferring, due to a change in employment, wanting to transfer from Prison Education Center in Fayetteville to Mount St. Mary's Academy in Little Rock, also under the Succeed Scholarship Program.
Okay. Any questions? We have a motion.
Motion to approve the transfer.
Motion by Mr. Packron, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. McFetrich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. You may call them and tell
Will
them.
do. Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the action agenda, which is also the last item on the action agenda, is relative to the Perkins 5, not Perkins, sorry, Perkins 5. I'm so obsessed with making sure I try to pronounce your name correctly that I've got Perkins on the brain. Anyway, we have this information ahead of time. I don't see Dr. Kremers in the, do we want to wait till after lunch to handle this in case the board members have questions? Or do you want to handle that, Dr. Pfeffer?
It's Ivy Pfeffer, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. And so Dr. Kramers is actually at a meeting right now regarding the new reauthorization of Perkins 5. And so she had asked Dr. Cheryl Wiedemeyer to step in and present this item today. So I'm sure Dr. Wiedemeyer was just thinking it would be after lunch.
Sure.
So she'll be coming, but she could come. I could try to answer questions right now if you felt like that would be appropriate, and because is she here?
Ta-da.
Oh, okay, good. I think one of the things that Dr. Kramers wanted us to
Welcome to a room when everybody turns and looks and sees that you're in.
So the expert will be here to answer questions, but I think just to make sure everyone understands that what you're looking at today is actually the transition plan that would be in effect for this 1920 school year, getting us up to the point where we will have a newly reauthorized Perkins 5 plan that likely would have different components and look different because of the work that the Division of Career Education is doing right now with stakeholders. This is more of a technical requirement today for you to review this plan. At the federal level, the Department of Education has a group called OCTAE, which is the Office for Career, Technical, and Adult Education. And so OCTAE, with the changeover for the division, because that K-12 part of career ed was pulled over underneath our overall Arkansas Department of Education umbrella, they will now be reporting to you as a state board. It was just necessary for OCTAE to have you review the plan and sign off as this is the transition that we're going to be having over the next year.
Okay, thank you. If you will, come to the microphone and introduce yourself.
Good morning, I'm Cheryl Wiedemeyer, and I'm with the Division of Career and Technical Education, representing Dr. Kramers, who is actually at a Perkins meeting in Washington right now.
Well, welcome to the State Board of Education
Thank you.
meeting. We appreciate
Thank you.
being here, and I appreciate you coming in a little bit earlier than you anticipated. Do we have questions? Dr. Moore?
Yeah, so I know school districts, co-ops, and higher ed get these Perkins grants.
Yes.
How are those determined? Because I know not every school district in the state is getting one of those. What does that look like?
The school districts are all eligible. It does go directly to each school district. We have consortia set up at the educational service cooperatives, and a lot of the schools belong to that consortia. And so the money for their particular schools are housed at the co-op, and they're distributed from there. And they write proposals for how they want to spend their money, and that's what we have a portal that all goes through Dr. Moore, and our staff reviews those, make sure everything's in line with all the Perkins requirements, and then we approve them at our level for them to spend.
And are these all CTE courses from 7 to 12 grade?
Yes, and with the new Perkins, it'll go down to grade 5.
I
had a question on your career clusters. And I was kind of surprised that computer science really wasn't broken out into a career cluster.
No, ma'am, it is not. It kind of goes across a couple of the career clusters, and we have an office of STEM that works with the computer science programs that we have. But it's information technology, and then it goes across some of the others as well. It's in every cluster, actually.
Okay.
But information technology is where we see the heaviest in our area.
So where would the coding piece be? Because I know that's such an initiative. With
It is,
government.
and we have, in the junior high courses, in 8th grade, we have a key code class, that's where it begins. And then in the upper high school, we have programming courses that it would fall under.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions on this side? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A motion to approve by Dr. Moore, second
Second.
by Ms. McFettridge. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And do we have any new business? I do have one person that signed up. There may be others. Would you look out front and see if there's other people signed up for public comment? While she's looking, Mr. Smith, or is it Dr. Smith, you may come up. Okay, thank you. And please identify yourself. We typically hold these to 3 minutes, but if you go a little beyond that, then that won't be a concern.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity for this presentation. Thank you to the board. And I guess I would like at least to implement a disclaimer. I'm a Baptist preacher, so 3 minutes is...
That could be a good thing. If you'll state your name,
My name is
Pastor.
Yes, my name is Johnny Smith, and I'm here today on behalf of the Desha County Social Justice Advocacy Alliance, and I represent a multiplicity of churches and communities and organizations in the southern and southeast region of our state.
You may want to give a little bit of background for those members who may not be aware of the concerns that you're going to present to us.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. I'm here today, and what we want to deal with first of all is we're actually focusing on the Dumas School District, and there are multiple practices, hiring practices, promoting practices, and selections that have yielded a great degree of disparities and racial inequalities and inequities within our community. Even at this point, we are working and want to work with our school district to help eliminate some of these disparities and inequities, and we propose this to our district as well. There is right now approximately in our athletic program a 16-to-5 coaching position that is racial inequities, and there is a campus administration which is approximately projected at 4-to-1 in our schools, and there is at this point, even at the high school, the assistant principal is white, the assistant principal is white, the academic facilitator, instructional facilitator is a white, the dean of students is a white male, the resource officer is white female, and the counselor is white, and predominantly at least a 70 to 30% ratio of African Americans, predominantly African Americans. I have one of our former administrators who is with us today, who was instructed as a principal to hire an assistant principal, that he needed to hire someone of the opposite race and opposite sex, who suggested a white female. After his departure, we now have what I've just expressed to you as a result of that practice not even being implemented after the African American departure or the departure of the African American principal. In one campus alone, we have a 28-to-6 ratio as relates to certified personnel, 28 white certified personnel to only 6 African Americans or minority personnel. But what brings us here today, and we want to work, and we are going to work with our community, with our school board, with every entity possible to help in a processual and a progressive way to eliminate these disparities. We know and we believe we can get it done. But what brings us to you today is a state of urgency. On May, and this has to deal with the school board's decision. On May 3rd, a white head coach, the white head coach, football head coach, texts to an African American mother who happens to be an employee of the Dumas School District, and I quote, "I hate niggers." 11 minutes later, he texts back, I quote again, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I meant beggars." We were informed by the district school board that because of due process, there was no way for our community or organizations to address our dismay, dissatisfaction, disgruntlement with this particular employee or with the coach. On June 18th, the school board decided to retain the head football coach, who is also the dean of students, with a minimal disciplinary act, which included a 100-day suspension, racial sensitivity training, and a public apology. What is even more painful is the fact that the school board would take a juvenile concept and force an adult man to apologize to our community as a matter of his contractual agreement. This decision has urged us into a dilemma that cannot be figured out, and neither will the school board give us opportunity to address it. And what we are now dealing with now as relates to our community, the African American home, and the results of this decision is we wanted to ask the school board to give alternatives and options to the athlete who wanted to continue to play football but did not want to play football under a coach who had expressed such racial hatred. We wanted some alternatives and options for athletes who wanted to withdraw from the Dumas School District to go to another school district and still be eligible to play because of the hatred that had been expressed by the head football coach, who will continue to coach this season in Dumas. We wanted and want to ask for an alternative or an option for parents and students who don't want to be supervised or have their children supervised by us dean of students, who has expressed racial hatred, dismay, and bigotry for their race. And we have no alternative. The only alternative is that the employees of the Dumas School Districts who are minorities, and particularly African Americans, that the students of Dumas School District who are minorities and African Americans, that the athletes in the football program will be forced to try to interact and try to function in the sphere and in the presence of a man who has expressed his racial hatred for us. And at this point, our parents, our homes, and particularly students who don't understand the racial impact, whose dreams, and particularly our black athletes whose dreams are to hopefully make it to the next level, get a scholarship, and et cetera. And they want to follow their dreams, but they've got parents and grandparents who want them to understand the dignity and integrity of being an African American and how to continue to put your dreams and your integrity together. And our homes, some homes are actually torn because of the athlete and the parent. And we need help, we need direction, we need alternatives. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Dr. Hill, you or the Commissioner one can likely address the AAA rules regarding a student in one district whose parents don't move to another district, and as I understand it, they have to sit out a year. Is that correct?
Eligibility, that's correct. That would,
So that's-
unless it's a waiver or something given through the AAA, through an appeal process, which is something that should possibly be considered as toxic as this situation has developed to over a period of time. What the pastor here is looking for some options for that situation based on the outcome that's been taking place. It was my understanding that what was the initial steps once this was discovered, that it was the board, what did the board do?
The board, the school board's decision was just the 100-day suspension, the sensitivity training, and the apology. Now, we are planning to address the school board, and I think we should address it here as well, is that our understanding from school board members and our review of the policy that a employee suspension is the same as a student suspension. No access to any school activities, no access to the campus, and no normal responsibilities, actions as behavior. But as late as July 25th, the coach held a team meeting on school campus. And in that meeting, there was somewhat of an apology, but there was also a rally to prepare the team for the first game against Rising. And then after that, the week later, then there was an apology that was printed by the local newspaper. And so there was no stipulation of how the public policy should have been implemented by the school board. But if it was done through this correspondence through the newspaper, then there was no need for that. And we also got the response that, well, the superintendent had permitted it. But our understanding is that the superintendent is a subordinate of the school board, and he doesn't have the authority to override, modify, dismiss, or disregard a decision that's made by the school board. So even at this point, the 100 days in suspension doesn't seem to have been implemented.
So the superintendent recommended that he not be recontracted, and the board overruled him.
That's what I was trying to get out the
Now,
facts.
responding to Dr. Hill, there are parents who have who withdrew in the athlete in time and got them enrolled and went through the necessary process of identifying address in other schools. One of our problems is there are parents who are economically able to do it, and there are parents who are not. And as relates to my child and my grandchild, we've made arrangements that my child and my grandchild has withdrawn through the procedure, but we're able to do that because of our ability to transfer our child. But there are many in Dumas, and we all know that Dumas sits in the midst of the Delta. And so as a result, there are many families who don't have the wherewithal to even make that or even carry it out, even though they would like to.
My next question, so you said he's dean of students as well?
Yes, sir.
Does that 100-day suspension coexist for the head football coach and the dean of students?
According to my understanding and some communication with board members, that is the implementation, is that as a employee, include our coach and dean of students.
So if you said as recent as July 25th, he had held a team meeting, when does that 100-day start?
My hope is that it doesn't start earlier than July 25th.
Well, he was just with the team. That's what you said on July 25th?
Yeah, on July 25th.
So it'd have to be July 26th forward.
July 26th forward, because our understanding and what was relayed to us that it was to be implemented immediately. We asked that night from the school board at the special meeting, when does it start? And we were informed immediately. But as late as June 25th, he was on campus, had a meeting with the team and with the coaching staff, and the coaching staff is a completely white coaching staff.
With no African-American representation.
Maybe Dr. Hill or Mr. Key can, after we adjourn this meeting, talk to him about how they can appeal to or approach AAA.
AAA, yes, with
That
Lance.
would not be something that we can do, but circumstances alter cases, and hopefully they, might look at it this way. Other than that,
But I think,
okay,
Commissioner,
Dr. Hill?
from the standpoint of, and I want to make sure the board has these facts, after the discovery of information dealing with the text message, that it was granted by the superintendent, recommended to the board termination. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The board overturned the recommendation.
Yes, modified it.
Modified the recommendation and gave a 100-day suspension, or the discipline measure that you spoke out about, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then, but as recent as July 25th, he had met with the team and held the coaches meeting.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure the board understood all of those facts, which you've just said. Now with the kids, there were some who's been able to make the decision to move.
Yes, sir.
And to other locations, and there are some that are still under the leadership of this person who has been identified with his insensitive remarks.
Yes, sir. There have been athletes who protested by not attending the summer training and off-season training, et cetera. There's a concern about those students who want to play but would like to play before he comes back, because our understanding that his suspension included a 3-game suspension. He was back in third or fourth or fifth game. So those students wanted to play until he came back and they no longer play. However, there's a concern about their conditioning. They didn't want to be a part of under his leadership, and yet they cannot condition and then try to go to the field. And then, so those are concerns. There's another concern that we're really about is that surrounding communities and rival schools already they know about the dilemma. In one of the basketball camps last month, a white athlete said to a black athlete from Dumas on the floor, he called him a B.A. nigger, a female dog nigger, and an eruption held on the court. And so there was, the coach contemplated just walking out, but he decided to continue for the integrity of the team.
I think Mr. Key can give us an update on what's been done here at the division to this point.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hook. So in the aftermath of the news that came out, we've been contacted by a number of residents from that district. And I know Dr. Hill and Ms. Dean had been contacted, so we've had conversations as well, just so you all, and Ms. Hook, so maybe others have too. So just to tell you, so the board knows what we have done, when we were made aware of it, I asked the Equity Assistance Unit to make contact with the district to see what assistance they could provide. I'd also asked the PLSB to follow up and make contact there as well. Obviously with PLSB, as you all know, the division and PLSB can't talk about whether there's been a complaint or process or if there's an investigation process or any of that kind of thing. The report, and then I have talked personally to Mr. Gregg to offer our support. So Equity Assistance went and made contact with Mr. Gregg, and in my conversation with Mr. Gregg, he feels like he has done everything he can do with respect to making his recommendation to the board. And that's what he expressed to me. And then once that was done, it was out of his hands into the board's hands. And then from a standpoint of the department, being local control for our local districts, we have taken the steps that we feel are what's within our authority to do. But we stand ready, should Mr. Gregg and should the district want assistance with respect to the discussion of equity, access of athletes, access of students to any of the situations there. We would be willing to help them. But at this point, the district has said that there's not really any further assistance that we can provide for them at this time.
I guess what we have here is probably a bigger problem, and this just kind of made it toxic. Because as I listened to him, and for as if we sent a team down there to evaluate the equity of the school, and what did you say the percentage of the football team is African American?
I think the school population at least 70-30.
And you not have, and did our team see that we did not have an African American coach on staff?
So let me make sure I'm clear. I don't think the unit went. I think the unit called the superintendent, had a discussion with him, but there was. We don't force ourselves to go in. This is not an investigative unit. This is an assistance unit.
So how can we be proactive in going in just like we do academics? Because here's a greater problem of even enhancing academics with the environment that we're creating through relationships that obviously we don't have.
Well, and that really hinges on the superintendent, the district leadership. You know, we can be proactive.
Can the superintendent request us to come in, or does that have to come from the board? Because if the superintendent made the recommendation and then the board overturned it, can the superintendent, or does that have to come from the board?
No, we would take a request from a superintendent to then come in. We don't, I mean, that's really up to the district. But typically when we get calls, it's either like this, it comes from the community, we follow up, and the superintendent says, yes, come on in, we could use the help. Or in this case, the situation did not result in us going on site.
I think we got a problem here that is going to erupt on us if we're not proactive in taking more initiative, because there's already dissension right there, and if we put our heads in the sand and realize what the pastor's telling us from the community standpoint, what's going on, and I understand the protocol. I know we're governance and policy and everything, but I think we have some issues here that must be addressed, not only through this issue, I guess is what I'm saying, not just this one situation that has erupted through a text message. And was it verified through the text message? Was everything researched to make sure?
Yes, sir. Everything was verified through the text message. Initially, as we stated, he texted back to Liberal Mendes and said, "I hate beggars." But during his apology, he expressed, "I was angry, and I spoke out of anger, and I never should have done that."
Okay.
I have a question. Maybe it's for you, but if anybody else can shed light. This has all come up just since late May, is that what you said?
Oh, the text message came up since late May. We had already began to address the disparities and inequities prior to the text message.
I understand. I was just asking about the text. And since it's just come up, are there students that would have been interested in transferring to another district that couldn't because it was after the school choice deadline?
Am I able to identify those?
I'm just wondering if there were any that would be
yes, there are
interested
those
in
who we've had discussion with and who filed complaints and et cetera. And we did ask, or we wanted to ask about a waiver for school choice, but we weren't able to get to the school board to get directions as to what the process of that would be.
And that still wouldn't have solved the problem for the students who wanted to play athletics.
Yes,
right.
Because it would have been a waiver request. And it's like the secretary said, there may be, as a result of the parents, there may be a PLSB case. That's when the ethics group, but it's not a part of us. There may be a case open there, but we don't know that because they're separate and apart from us that would, investigate this kind of thing. And I think what the school district would have to do is demonstrate that they had in fact made an effort to have what would from the outside look like a more balanced faculty. You can't always balance it equally because there's a limited number of teachers, but they at least would need to demonstrate that they had made an effort to have a balance within their school district. But they're not under any kind of court order, so they don't have to do that. But lots of good school people choose to do that without a court order. I appreciate you coming in. I sympathize, and I'm very familiar with Dumas schools and the good people that go to school there. We just, Lord willing, that this will work out for the students either as a plane for coming into school this coming year or as an unfortunate way to learn a hard lesson. But hopefully it will be resolved either by your board or someone else.
I want to ask, so if the commission and I got with AAA and we've found there's opportunities for an immediate transfer for a waiver to allow those students to go play in another district, would that help? I'm just asking.
I believe it will at least help give some options to some parents and to some athletes.
Yeah.
And because that has been a concern.
And is it too late for those kids to do that, or do you think they would go? They've already kind of identified, and that's kind of on the
My understanding, Mr. Hill, is that Dr. Hill, is that there are some who still undecided, and we're looking for some who made some decisions. And so I can't really say just what percentage or who will, but I think that some are looking for some avenues. And one of the issues is that there's a great number of athletes whose last year it is.
Correct.
And then there's been and we believe, the accomplishments of the school district last year to the semifinals gave hope to them repeating or being a champion this year. So all of that goes into play, and whether they have to try out among other athletes at other schools, all of those are dilemmas.
Well, that's what I was looking for, what options that you would hope to achieve by coming here.
Yes,
And so when you're looking at like the commission secretary said, we're limited by what we have here, and so we can't break policy or protocol based on that. But what we were hoping is that we could give you some relief in your community for what you aspire for the families to do, because I'm not certain, and my son's an athlete, I'm not certain what I would do.
Yes, sir.
You understand? So as I sit here to look and see what, as Nelson Mandela once said, when you lose and you learn, you don't lose.
Right.
And so I'm trying to see what can we learn from this process that would be advantageous moving forward, but also understanding as a parent that, that there is a dilemma here that we're dealing with, and I want to make sure we as a board are sensitive to that as parents, and then providing alternatives for those parents to do that based on what the action of the school board has done.
Yes, and I think that's the hope that we had, was having some option that would not engage any penalty or consequences for those. And I think there's an intent that really makes the nucleus of it athletics, but every student who's under his supervision is important. It's not just the athlete. So if he's the dean of students, how he functions in the cafeteria during lunchtime,
Absolutely.
Or how a student feels in the presence of him walking down the hall, or any disciplinary actions he may recommend or suggest, comes from a vile place. And so what would parents do what would be the consequence if parents say you don't have to attend his class or be in study hall or wherever he may be, to avoid him at all costs? And those are the things that we don't have any answers to, but we know that our natural instinct is to say to our children, avoid him.
Right.
to stay away from and do not go. But then when they're on campus, there are some regulations that they have to deal with.
When someone's not signed up for public comment, can we take a vote and agree to listen, or has everything, okay. Board, we have someone who wasn't signed up to give public comment who wants to do so. Do I have a motion for that? Ms.
Second.
Chambers?
Second.
Second by Dr. Hill, all in favor? Okay.
Ms. Zook, I have one question before
Okay.
that. You mentioned that there were ones that were interested in transferring, but my understanding is that your Dumas board would have to approve those transfers. Has anyone approached the board and asked if they would be willing to grant those transfers?
Yes, ma'am. There have been, I think, at least 20 or 30 parents who made requests and had the superintendents to sign and they went through the necessary processes.
So they were approved?
Yes, ma'am. As far as I know, I don't know anyone who has not been.
Okay, thank you.
If you will, get the microphone where you can see and identify yourself, please.
Alice Love from Dumas, retired teacher. You mentioned that if a school district shows that they have attempted to do equity in their hiring practices, how do we get to know, how do you get to know that they've really worked on that? Because the applications for whatever jobs, we're told that's confidentiality. So how do we get to know, how do you prove that there were people who applied who were African American and were turned away?
Does someone in the back want to answer that question? Legal, do you want to answer that question?
And Lori, I'm sorry, you can come up and add too, but unless there is, as Ms. Zook, as you mentioned, unless there is a court action involved where a district has to submit documentation to the court, I don't know that there is any public way of knowing that unless the district itself is very public in its plan and in its work toward that end. So really, again, it gets back to outside of a judge signing an order, then the district has the autonomy to operate in the fashion that it sees fit under state law.
Which is the practice. And if I had applied and I was told I did not get the job, I probably wouldn't go to court and sue for that. So that's what I'm asking. How would anybody know? What proof do we have, and how do we get the proof that we've had, and we know that there's been African Americans who applied, but they were not hired, but white persons were hired instead, and we know that.
And here's what I'm perceiving, and I don't know, okay, because nobody's done investigation. There's systemic issues here that we must take to be able to look at based on the numbers. Yes. I mean, and so as a board, if we're sitting back and we're saying, I'm just, from studies, just looking at what the numbers are, and we're saying, but we can't look at it because of our position, and I understand that. But I'm saying, we all know that learning takes place through relationships. And there is a barrier of relationship building taking place here. And I think, for whatever equity that we can do, we have to be proactive in going into looking at this systemic processes that are in place based on the information, and us saying, that we're not allowed to do that. I got that. But what we got to get innovative in finding out what can we do to help this situation, because if not, I'm pretty sure it's not going to get any better without action being taken place. And based on what we've just seen transpire the last 90 days, if we're put our head in the sand, it's not going to get fixed.
And the system will continue to work.
I mean, I'm just, so I'm going to take the call to AAA, Mr. Lance, and Steve Roberts. Those are colleagues of mine from athletics. And I'm going to ask if there is a way to do that, because in this situation, There are immediate plans, short-term plans, and long-term plans to fix this right here. So right now, I want to look at the AAA because football season starts in 3 weeks, and to see if there is anything. The other piece that I think from a relationship standpoint, we got to look at from a dean of students in the classroom with those individuals, and we realize there is an issue here. And how it's going to be resolved, I think they're coming to the board asking for some oversight to look so it doesn't turn into a toxic situation moving forward with the pastors and things that we have to revert back to from the old school ways of trying to get attention, that they want to do things in decent and in order. Is that, does that make,
that's our hope, and we are very afraid that we're sitting on a time bomb.
Yeah, I've been made aware of that, and so I've asked, do things right, come here and do this, and so let's be assistant in trying to alleviate some pressure in this situation. And I think right now I'm going to reach out to Mr. Lance today to AAA to see if there is an immediate action we can do, but also I'm willing to come down and and listen. And this is hard.
Yes, sir. It is.
I mean, I've been dealing with this a long time. This is a very difficult situation to work through, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, but we can't close the chapter and think it's going to get better without trying to learn from this situation that's going to be beneficial to everybody. And so, I mean, I appreciate the steps that you're trying to take to do things in decent and in order.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I would like to ask, during our conversation with various parts of the entities of the department, there was somewhere, and we can't trace it yet, but a suggestion of a racial equity impact assessment. And we did find it, but we didn't find it in our state or in our department. And it's a tool in which the community and stakeholders work with government entities or school boards in order to help deal with the impact that decisions have on the community and et cetera. And after reviewing and studying it, it's an awesome tool that I think would be implemented in our area that could really help us move forward. So if anyone has any insight, information that they could help us with and give us direction, we'd definitely like to consider it.
That's what I was referencing, some ongoing professional development to with long-term goals identified.
I don't think that's the subject she has in mind, but Dr. Pepper has, did you have something you wanted to add?
And this may be something that's more appropriate for the previous question, but the district is required to submit a minority teacher recruitment plan annually, and that is submitted to our equity office. So in asking about how do we assure and know, that there are candidates, what is the plan, that may be an area that our equity office could assist with in, and I'd have to look again what the timeline is for the submission of that plan, but that may be something we could do to assist with, but those are required annually.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Zook, if I may, and Dr. Hill, we've talked about this two, 3, 4, 20 times over the last couple of months, and I know that I think I'm not pushing back against you. I guess it's the notion that this might somehow be perceived as sticking our heads in the sand. I don't think that's it. I think it's, and this is one of those areas where you have the division and what the law says the division can do, but then you have the board and what the general authority of you as either collectively or individually as board members can do. And I think part of that is shining a light on inequities or other issues that are interfering with the delivery of the education to our students in the state of Arkansas. And I think that's what you're engaged in here today is really shining that light. I'll remind y'all, it wasn't that long ago we had a very similar situation with another school district dealing with a board member who was dressed for Halloween in blackface. Okay, that issue came here and was discussed, and you know, we in the effort to try to shine the light on that, you know, we have no authority over individual board members, but local board members. I don't know if that changed any of the conversation in that community or not. I do know that we have mutual acquaintances and colleagues and people in Dumas and in that community that I believe could advance. Does shining the light on it here help move that conversation forward in a positive way? That would be my hope and assistance to you all as members of this board, that you know, it may not be an enforcement, or we can't go impose our will on a superintendent and board. Can we shape the conversation in the community that then the community has that influence over the board and the superintendent? I think that's, in my view, that's the end result of this conversation today, that collectively you all have a better understanding of what a number of individual members have been hearing about and what the department has been getting. So, you know, I think there's some positive that can come from this today. Immediate issues regarding students, unknown. Immediate issues regarding any investigations that may or may not be happening on ethics. You know, if that happens, it'll come to you in due time. But today, I mean, I've told you I would do what we can to help, and I reiterate that publicly to say the Office of the Commissioner, now Office of the Secretary, these are the conversations we want to have to drive us toward positive resolution in our communities.
And I hope you didn't misread what I said when I was talking about do something from putting our heads in the sand. What I was really referencing, those students right now.
I understand.
That, you know, that they're asking for some relief for.
Yeah, and I didn't misunderstand.
Okay,
I just didn't want, as it gets reported,
yes,
as this conversation gets.
No, we've been in conversations weekly.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
I mean, and I appreciate everything, and you've explained to me exactly what our limitations were.
I just want to make sure Cynthia has full context of this.
And we'll be glad to talk to her after. But the commissioner's been MVP on this. But I was just trying to explain back to go through protocol to bring information to the board so we could know, rather than it being a toxic situation, and trying to provide relief for those, immediate relief for those students right now, rather than them coming ask what do they do to offer relief, and at least we can give some alternatives or some options. And I will reach out to the AAA today and then I'll report back to you, Ms. Hook.
Okay, thank you very much.
Commissioner,
I do, go ahead,
one
Ms.
question.
Newton.
Could you make an effort maybe to reach back out to Mr. Gregg as school gets closer? You know, sometimes people change their minds on, hey, I didn't think I needed help, but now I do. Just make him aware that at any time during the year that if he decides that he needs help on any issues, that
Yes,
we
ma'am.
stand ready to help him and.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Anyone else? Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate you presented it well, you articulated it well, and you have represented your community. And one of the things we work on here is we're wanting stakeholder engagement. And so that is not from the teeth out. We do want stakeholder engagement, and we do appreciate you and the effort that y'all are making there. And everything we can do within our power will get done, I can assure you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. There being no other business, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay. Then we will come back after lunch for reports. Do not leave. How about 1 o'clock? Or y'all want to come back sooner so you can get on the road? Okay. How about 12:45? Cynthia, I feel like we should invite you to join us up here. Call the afternoon meeting for reports to order. And the first on the agenda is the chair's report. And I have three things. I had a note from the principal that we gave a waiver to in Mountain Home. She had a 5th through 7th through 12th grade administrative license. She had been the administrator as well as the first female athletic director up in that area. And we gave them a waiver for her to be the administrator for their kindergarten school. And she sent a note, this was 3 years ago, she sent a note saying she absolutely loved it. She's starting her 47th year, and she has gone back and gotten fully credentialed. So now she is official, but she went into that with as much passion and as she has everything else in her career. And I'm, of course, especially proud of her because she's a Melbourne girl. Secondly, I had a note from the Gerald Cooper, who's head of the North Central Co-op, and they have a new facility at their co-op. It's called the Recruitment and Retention Center, and it's available also to give support to all the novice teachers. And so he sent me pictures of that, and I couldn't figure out how to do a PowerPoint to show them to you. But anyway, he would be thrilled to show any and all of you that, or I can email the pictures to Gina or someone and she can send them. But anyway, it looks very nice. And then thirdly, the Ignite Center opened in Bentonville yesterday, and they'll serve 330 children this year, students this year, 11th and 12th graders. And they'll be offering these: technology, construction management, medicine, culinary arts, global business, education, which is the teacher cadet program, video, and digital design. And those will be the areas of focus, and the kids from all of their high schools will come to this one site. And if you get a chance in that area, they're like the School of Innovation in Springdale. They'd love to show it off to you. And they sent, Secretary, this is it's like a light bulb. I don't think you can see it very well, but it's like a light bulb, and that is the I in Ignite, and very clever. And the board and Dr. Debbie Jones are certainly to be commended and complimented for this program provided for children. Typical of that school district, very students-oriented. Commissioner.
So a couple of things, and then I've got a short video that I'll talk about in a second. Just want to point out some personnel changes here at the department that will be of interest to you all, because these three individuals, the positions they hold, you will hear from them on a pretty frequent basis. One is Jennifer Link. Jennifer Link is a new attorney with PLSB. I think she might have been in here earlier, but she stepped out. Otherwise, I would have introduced her to you all. But she joins us from the city of Pine Bluff. Worked in the office there. So happy to have Jennifer aboard. Last month we talked about our transition from Hope Worsham to the Little Rock School District. So today I want to let you know that Dr. Kiffany Pride is going to be elevated to her role. Dr. Pride, if you remember that name, has been working with OCSS in the Little Rock School District directly, specifically in those 4 elementary schools working on reading. But she will come into this and be the director over assessment and curriculum. So we're doing some restructuring at the same time. Remember, Hope was the director of assessment, but we're combining some roles, and Dr. Pride will be over curriculum and assessment. And then Rachel Horn, who's a public school program coordinator for assessment. So I'm filling some key roles there in the assessment unit. As I said, you all hear from that unit on a regular basis through the course of a year. And we're excited to have them on board. We have a number of other new team members coming on board and still looking. Those of you, some have asked about facilities. There was the story about Brad Montgomery recently resigning. Was a great loss to us, but we're in the process of identifying a replacement for Mr. Montgomery, and so hopefully we'll have some news to tell about that soon. The other thing I wanted to do is give you an update. Arkansas Governor's School recently completed its 4-week session, and we had 400 rising seniors that were invited. This was the 40th session and the first hosted by Arkansas Tech. We had 366 students that attended. 94 high schools, inclusive of traditional public, charter schools, and private schools, were in attendance. And they all selected their area. So in area one, the area 1 areas, cybersecurity, we had 19. That's something a little different for Governor's School. But English language arts for 52 students, math 49, natural science 82, social science 91, choral music 19, drama 20, instrumental music 16, and visual arts 17. So we had a very wide range of subject areas that our students had the opportunity to participate in. And then they also had, if you remember, the area 2, which focused on conceptual development and critical thinking. So they had a number of events, Alumni Day, Legislator Day, Educator Day, Parent Day, and then the governor also visited on a Tuesday evening and came and spoke to the group. And just to say, I mean, the reports that we got back, obviously there were a few hiccups, but most were minor and probably fewer than what we expected. Stacy, is that accurate? Because the first year in a new venue, we fully expected to have more just by the nature of something of that magnitude being brand new on campus. So we were very pleased overall.
How do the numbers compare?
Maybe Stacy, I don't have that in this report, so maybe Stacy can help me with that one.
Good afternoon, Stacy Smith. So comparable, we normally invite 400 students to it. Usually it's full at 400, so this one stayed pretty close to that. So comparable, it was there.
Okay.
All right, any other questions on Governor's School? Remember a year ago we were deep in conversation about that process. So thought you might appreciate a positive report a year later. Well, good job to the team. I will say that the reports from the Arkansas Tech team, they worked hard to make this happen. And Stacy may want to comment on that too.
I do want to just commend my unit, my GT, Gifted AP unit. They were there every single week. They went to classrooms. They were in classrooms. We were very hands-on because it was the first time they're being held at ATU. If we saw something that we thought was questionable, they were very proactive in sitting down with staff to say, hey, can we address this? So Crystal Nell, who is new to the director position, did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have had a number of meetings over the last month regarding the transformation. We're all still not accustomed to saying Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. But the more we talk about it, the easier that will get. Just a lot of excitement and some apprehension about just the unknown of what does this mean. But I think with the meetings that we've been having, the communication we've been having, just letting people know, hey, our work continues in the division. Our vision and mission has not changed. We actually have, I believe, more resources or easier access to the resources when it comes to state library work that we're doing with the blind school, the deaf school, opportunities with higher education. So, and then obviously the closer working relationship with career technical education has already started to pay benefits. So very excited about that. What I want to show you is a short little video that our creative team put together that helps people understand briefly what transformation means to the Department of Education. All right, go ahead, Dan.
To the organizational chart, is it possible to stop on that?
We, Dan, can you run that back? I will say that since that was a draft of the organizational chart, we found some things that were missing that we had to go back and add to or correct. So, yeah. Which one? That one?
Yes. Can you make that bigger? So there'll be a separate communications director and financial
Okay, yeah, so let me kind of describe that. This represents the Office of the Secretary. So every cabinet level agency created an Office of the Secretary with certain positions. And this reflects that. Now, what I want you to understand is that the individuals in these positions are really pulling double duty because Gina, while it says Chief Operating Officer for the Office of the Secretary, she remains Chief of Staff for the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. Alicia Lewis, who is Communications Director for the Division of Higher Ed, is the Chief Communications Director for the new cabinet level agency. And the one that, so everyone there is really fulfilling the role they were in and their new role. except for Sarah Lynham. She has come to us from DHS, where the last 2 years she has been helping direct and lead the transformation of DHS, as they got a little head start on us as a result of 2017 legislation. So I was able to recruit her away from DHS to come and help us. She also has extensive background in education. She was education attorney for the Bureau of Legislative Research back when I was serving in the legislature. So that's, and then Dr. Flowers, we'll talk a little bit about his position. The Chief Opportunity Officer. The governor set some recommended positions that he thought every cabinet level agency should have, but he also afforded us some flexibility to create something if we thought it might be helpful to the mission of transformation. And so that is where Dr. Flowers comes in. That position was created so we could look at from the continuum of education from pre-K into and beyond careers. So we're not just talking about the 3-year-old to college age. We're talking about even beyond that age. You know, the older workers who may be displaced or something like that. Along that continuum of education, the on-ramps and off-ramps and the obstacles and barriers that people face. And Dr. Flowers' work will involve research and pulling together public sector, private sector entities, creating partnerships and leading work and identifying how we can solve those barriers to make it a more seamless transition as Arkansans progress on that continuum.
Is the Erin Franks, is that the former Michelle Griffin position?
Yes, and she is so she is fulfilling that role in the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, as well as being the Chief Legislative Director for the Office of the Secretary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if there aren't any other questions, that is my report.
Okay. And this will be the last meeting where we officially...
Oh, sorry. Dr. Pride came in. I want y'all to, as she came in, I want y'all to see her. Dr. Tiffany Pride, stand up, Dr. Pride. I want to tell you, I did not know her, and I still don't know her well. We've not spent much time together, but I can tell you the reports and the work that she was doing in the 4 elementary schools in LRSD, I believe starting in January. Just the work of coaching and helping the coaches, instructional facilitators, helping the principals with respect to implementation of RISE in the classroom. It's amazing where we started and where the year ended. And I really think in a couple of those schools you may see some strong results that I could only wish we had her working in those schools the whole year. But this opportunity came up, and we're really excited about what she'll be able to lead with this work in curriculum and assessment. This challenge now for Dr. Hernandez is to find somebody who can do just as good as she was doing in those. Yeah, he can't in those schools in Little Rock.
Maybe she can mentor them.
But anyway.
So Hope used to always, so she's in Hope's position. Hope used to go into meetings when we had the big transition when Hope first came, and she would say, "Hope has arrived," and so it was all about the name. So we got Dr. Pride here because in the next couple of years, all the pride that we're going to have and how we've risen and rising in the state. So it's all in the name.
So you have to recruit by name as well.
Yeah, branding is important, really is.
Right. That's right.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, this is the last meeting where we will have these standing committees that we've had. Is those of you who are liaisons and will still, if there's something that needs to come before us in reports, do that. But when I first came on the board, we took this time to, if a board member had visited a school, if they visited a co-op, if they'd had conversations, if they had something great and wonderful they wanted to bring before the rest of us, so that all of us can't be everywhere all the time, but if someone goes somewhere and does. So this will be a time when each of you will have an opportunity to share any or everything that you want to bring to the board's attention about what's going on out in the schools, the co-ops, the different, if you visit even like homeschools or open enrollment charters, you know, things like that, so that we can all share in that excitement. And so I'm going to go through this today quickly. I don't know, Ms. Dean isn't here on the family engagement and learning. Did you have anything more, Dr. Hill, that you want to share? Okay, let me.
Is there anybody out there from family engagement? Normally, she can.
Anything new you want to share?
You want to come up? Yeah,
sure. All right, go for it. This is a pretty informal bunch right now.
Good afternoon, Kim Wright, Director for Family and Community Engagement. And so I'm really excited to say that on August 19th, we're going to launch a statewide initiative about the framework and the toolkit being ready for implementation in the schools and the districts. So it's been a long time coming that we're ready to really put this all out here and have everything put to use. We do have, one of the things that we're going to do is really encourage the schools to use the framework and the toolkit in their school improvement, well, let's say this first, for their parental engagement plans, which we hope that they will align with their school improvement plans. So in the past, they've kind of been two separate things that schools have been working on, but instead what we want to do is the engagement plans to support the school improvement plans, and we hope to see schools and districts really move the needle using those. We do have those on our website now. When you go to arkansas.gov and you go to the parent tab, it's listed there. It's also listed on the administrator and the teacher tabs, so that it will be easy to find no matter, you know, who might be looking at it, whether it's someone in the community or someone in the education field. So we're really excited about that. What else? I mean, I think that's the major thing. We always have so many things going on. I could really stand up here and just talk and talk and talk, and I would love to, but we all, you know, have things to do. But that's really the main thing that we're super excited about, and we're going to be providing lots of technical supports to schools and districts and communities as well. You know, we want to pull everyone in, and so we're just excited about that. And I just want to say we're also doing a book drive that we are supporting Our House, which is locally here in Little Rock. And we're excited that it ends tomorrow. So if anyone would like to participate, we're going to be the books are going to be taken down to Miss Jackie Stafford down near the loading docks and around 1:15. We're going to load those books up and take those over to Our House. So we're super excited about that. And I counted before I came over just in case I got to talk. So Public School Accountability has 130 books collected as of right now. So there's a challenge to any of the other divisions that are out there that are watching, and you know, try to beat us. We're all going to see, you know, our goal is 500 books, and so that's just a little challenge from us to you guys.
And for those of you who may not be aware of Our House, it is a nonprofit group that is a safe haven for people who, for whatever reason, could be battering, could be any number of things, are pretty much without this help homeless. And they come in, they help them learn parenting skills, they help them learn the different jobs they might be qualified for or need help getting qualified, help them learn how to do interviews, how to dress, those kind of things, and then move them on out, and they get maybe sometimes for the first time their own home for them and their children. So it's a worthy cause. Okay, Ms. Newton, ESSA and NASB, either one?
I don't have anything on ESSA, and our NASB meeting is not until next Monday, the way the meetings fell this month.
The ESSA meeting is?
No, the NASB.
Oh, NASB meeting. And when is your next ESSA meeting? Are y'all still meeting regularly?
I don't think there's one. Is there one set yet?
I don't know.
Yes,
And Deb,
that,
do we have one? It's usually the last Wednesday of a month,
But
but,
we're not meeting every month, it's just
yeah,
a couple
but
times
I
a year.
mean, like, when it is, it's then.
well, 20, okay,
August
thank you.
28th.
I was looking at the wrong week, yeah.
And that's at 8, at what time?
9:30.
9:30, okay. So I can get out in time to go to Fitz's meeting. Nothing in particular from public school accountability, human resources? Okay, and Dr. Moore's going to serve as our liaison with pre-K. And so if any of you would like to be the liaison with career ed or higher ed, if you'll let me know, then we can make that happen as well. And I think that is it. Did any of you have anything else you want to share about your activities? It seemed like it was just 10 days ago we were here together, but
I had a
okay.
chance to do a training with the Springdale Education Association on trauma, which I thought was very informative and had really a lot of guides to help our teachers with, teaching children that have been in trauma cases. So if we ever get a chance, I would love to have someone make a presentation to this board on trauma and how it affects our children and how it affects them in the classroom specifically. But it was a great training. I appreciated going.
Yeah. If you want to work with Ms. Wendell on a reports day, like a 15-minute presentation, or if you think they can cover it in that amount of time?
I do, yeah.
And now I'm going to let Ms. McAdoo brag on the finalist opportunities that we had there, and she did a good job, and Randy, thanks to Randy House for jumping in and helping get that organized.
Yes. Are you not talking specifically about the reception, well, not the reception, but the thing at the governor's mansion recently?
Yes, sorry.
Yes, so we just officially named the 4 finalists. We recognized and celebrated all 15 of the finalists. And I'm really, really excited. I think that we cannot go wrong with whomever gets selected. I did want to also mention about the teacher night at the Travs, which is coming up. We mentioned that at the reception. I keep calling it a reception. I don't know the technical name for it because it technically might have been a brunch.
It was breakfast at 10:30.
Right. So I'm just really, really excited about that. In addition to that, I do have a video presentation that I was prepared to share with you all that is on the computer. I don't know where that is in the
Would you
lineup.
like to do that today or at the September meeting? It's up to you.
Today.
Today? Okay. Dan, can you help her with that? Thank you.
And and if you will, it has music, but I do not want the music on it. I couldn't figure out how to not have the music. It just kind of added it with the slideshow.
Music is good. We like music.
Yeah, if you'll just mute it, because I'm just going to kind of talk through the pictures and stuff. And so basically, originally what I was going to do was talk to you all about my experience when I went to Germany and Switzerland. But I've decided to back up and just kind of show you some of the things that I've been doing in the classroom and in the community prior to assuming my role and responsibility as the Teacher of the Year so that you can kind of see who I am. I will start by saying that I am Little Rock born and raised. I went to public schools here in Little Rock. I went to Baseline, I went to Henderson, I went to Hall, and the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. And my master's is actually from Monticello. My children attend Little Rock School District, and I have been teaching in the Little Rock School District all 17 years of my career at Central High School the entire time under the direction of Mrs. Nancy Rousseau. So up here, I have a whole bunch of pictures. And again, this is just from pretty much January to the end of the school year of things that I've done. I'm really, really involved in the community. I do a lot of things. I'll go to a lot of forums. I'm the founder of the Righteous Poets, and my platform is using passion and poetry to close the opportunity gap. So most of what I do deals with all types of opportunity gaps, because I think that that division that exists in education is primarily because of a lack of opportunity that some students didn't get. So on these pictures, there are things that represent a slam. I worked with the Southwest Co-op region, and we had a slam for all of the middle school and high school students. I worked with the former student who is at UCA, and we did a multilingual poetry slam that incorporated all of the foreign languages. I do a lot of PD. That particular picture is from Thea Foundation. Since we have started sending students to compete in the Thea Slam, which has, I don't want to give you an exact year, I want to say 7 years, I have always had a winner in the slam, and they give $4,000 for poetry, original poetry, that the colleges match. So that's really, really impressive. That's a picture from Ms. Hornsby and I. She's a communication teacher at Central. We did an interview unit where we brought in community members to interview the students and help teach them skills that they need. I do a lot of PD around the community and different places. Most of the PD that I offer is arts integration. Recently, people have been calling us in for classroom management and to teach them specifically how to do poetry slams. A couple of slides back, there were pictures from a conference I went to in New York. It was the Hip Hop Education Conference, and I took some poets with me, and we presented and taught teachers there how to do slams. I present at the AEA conference every year. Special events, I work with, that's Bryant Elementary. I know the pictures are moving too fast. So I work with a lot of different elementary and middle school teachers and come in and we work with their students and do poetry workshops with them. I'm on the advisory board for the Mayor's Transition Education Committee. I'm also on the advisory board for UA Little Rock's College of Communication and Social Sciences. And I do a lot of field trips with the students. We take them to the Clinton Center. We take them on college tours. And those final ones, now we're up to where I was actually announced. And we went to Washington, D.C., and I found a group that was doing a poetry hike. Poetry seems to find me everywhere I go. The last part of the slideshow up there is when we were actually in Germany. Well, those are from Switzerland. In Germany, we looked at the impact that the wall had on society and how it divided and separated people. I personally compared it to Little Rock Central High School and how we're still struggling with our past. And what else? In Switzerland, it was a global leadership conference, and there we had an opportunity to hear from lots of different people about the power of communication. Those pictures there are back in Germany. We went to lots of different places. But my plan, so that I won't be rushed, is to come back next month and actually talk in depth about Switzerland and Germany. I wanted to introduce myself to you all so that you knew who I am and what I'm about. And I think that's pretty much it. Okay. I did mention that I have 2 children, right?
Yes,
and both
you
of
did.
them,
Yes.
Both of them graduated from Central. So my son this year will be starting his 2nd year of college at Tennessee State, and my daughter just graduated, and we'll be taking her to college tomorrow. So I think that's it.
And your son's majoring in engineering, right?
Yeah, my son is civil engineer, and my daughter is undecided right now. She That's actually, she loves education and communication. So I think what she has settled on is mass comm with a minor in, I don't know, it has changed, but communication, education, and social justice are the things that she is interested in, and she's trying to figure out how to combine all of those to have a career that will be satisfying for her.
Very good. Thank you.
She's going to Jackson State in Mississippi.
Anything else to come before this august body?
I thought we may ask her to bring some students and let us see what SLAM is, you know, so.
They would love
That
that.
could be a report sometime. I hate taking kids out of the classroom, but that might be worth it. So-
And some of the students at this point are not necessarily, like a lot of people associate the Righteous Poets with Little Rock Central High specifically, and they're not all from Central. We just worked with AETN last week on a Say Your Piece poetry camp. And I have a couple of students that are at UCA now. You know, so their alumni are all over the city and state and actually the country because they're not just localized here to Little Rock.
Great. Thank you very much. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So
Move Mr. Williamson, second.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you all very much.